And we are live. Welcome everybody to the Church Budget Bootcamp. I promised you I wouldn't stumble through that. We're really excited to chat with you and answer all the questions that you have about your church budget and how to set up the budget in your ChurchTrac account. We brought Lori in, right?
Hi guys.
Hey guys. She doesn't like doing this. She doesn't like being on camera, but she's the best at she's our resident church accounting and budgeting expert. That's why we brought her on.
No.
Did I introduce myself? My name is Matt.
And I'm Lori.
And this is Lori. What we're going to do is we're going to run through the accounting feature and how to set everything up so that you can do your church's budgeting. We'll drop a lot of nuggets of wisdom as we go along and even have some pro tips at the end, so stick around.
Yes.
Go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. I would love to know who's watching. Already I see Ernie, Justin, Thaddeus, and Bob, and Diane. Thank you very much for joining us. Go ahead and let us know in the chat your name, your church's name and location. And I'd love to know how many years you've been doing budgets at your church so that we know exactly who we're talking to. Before we get into this though, I want to share a few resources with you that will help you in your journey, and you can use this to answer questions and make sure that you're having a good time in your ChurchTrac account. First is we have a YouTube channel with hundreds of videos that you can watch, many of which have to do with church budgeting and using ChurchTrac. So go ahead and click on the link that I just shared and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on everything that we're doing there. Also, we have a Facebook group. This is a private group of other church leaders that are using ChurchTrac. Go ahead and request to join that group. I personally vet everyone that requests, so go ahead and click that link, request to join. We'd love to see you there and be a part of a growing community of church ministers all over the world. And also, I can't believe I almost forgot, in your ChurchTrac account, in the top right-hand corner of the screen, there's always this orange help button, and I'm going to zoom in case you're watching this on your smartphone. Choo! There we go. There's the orange help button. If you click that button, this little window appears. We always link to a couple of articles related to whatever screen you're currently on, but there's always a Show All Help Topics button and an Ask Us a Question button. Show All Help Topics takes you to our user guide, where you can read all of the articles that we've written and watch the videos that we've created to help you get the most out of your account. But the Ask Us a Question opens up a support ticket. And that takes you to the support team. And Lori, you're the manager for our support team.
I am, Matt.
Yeah, tell them how great that team is.
It's an amazing team. We try very hard to give you some hand-holding, some help, some tools. Our motto is we want to teach you how to fish, not just give you a fish. So we're going to set you up for success when it comes to setting up your finances or using the software in any way, fashion, or form, Matt.
Awesome. So don't ever hesitate to reach out if you ever have any questions, no matter what. I mean, we have that user guide and the videos and the Facebook group and the YouTube channel, but sometimes you just need to talk to a person. Or sometimes your needs are so complex that a user guide article doesn't cover everything.
Correct. And we are people.
Yeah, and we are humans. You're not talking to a robot. You're talking to real people here on our team. So we're here for you whenever you need us.
Right.
All right, so that's the housekeeping. Let's actually get into what you all signed up for, and that's the boot camp, the budgeting boot camp.
Boot camp.
Church Budget Boot Camp. What we're going to cover in this is what you need to set up like church budgeting in ChurchTrac, how to set up the budget itself in ChurchTrac, and then how to keep track of that budget going forward. And we'll have some pro tips at the end as well, so definitely stick around. And after the pro tips, we'll also have a Q&A. And we have people on our team that will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions as we go, drop those questions into the chat. I might even call them out live and we'll answer them here, or our team behind the scenes will answer them as we go along, okay? All right, so Lori, why don't you walk us through just the foundational setting up the accounting feature?
Okay. So Matt, the most important part of your budget is actually having a functioning accounting platform.
Yeah.
So when you are building your accounting, and all this that we guide you through when we kind of push you into is for success. So it's tedious. Numbers are tedious. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
So when you go into your accounting screen, in this case, we already have all this built, but we want to make sure that you're successful in doing so. So the very first thing I would have you do is understand your categories. If you're setting up accounting, funds are very important, but in this case, because we're talking about budgets, we're not going to touch funds because your budget is based on your general fund.
Yeah, not any of your designated funds. You don't budget the designated funds, you budget out of you can budget the designated funds separately.
Just separately, yes.
But for the church budget, it comes out of the general fund. So we're not going to focus heavy on the funds because the default is the general fund anyways. So let's talk about the categories.
So when you set up your ChurchTrac account, you actually have categories in place already when the account is set up.
Yeah, by default.
You go in and you add what you guys are already using as a budget. So if you're creating your budget and you're entering information, you want to add your utility companies. You want to add things like if you're planning to use online giving, have the online giving fees. You'll see weird things in there like tests, but that's because examples, my events. So event, enter name of an event. Because you don't really budget those unless the church is going to offset costs and stuff like that.
Yeah. But in that case, you do need to budget.
Yes,
Yeah.
You need all these things in place. This does not mean everything goes into your budget, Matt.
Nope.
But you need your categories and you need them set up properly.
Yeah, and the reason why is because, and you'll see this in a little bit, but the software, use the categories to create the line items of the budget. So that's why we're starting here with categories. You have to add all of the data or all the things that you're wanting to keep track of in the budget as a category, either a parent category or a subcategory beneath that.
And one of the things that we really hit on a lot, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, Matt, I'm letting Matt drive. I have some site issues going on, so bear with us. But payroll.
Yeah, there's two different sections,
and non-budgeted. And just this week alone, I've already seen in a couple of people's accounts where they've gone in and removed these nuggets.
And these are default. Yeah, these are default categories that we already added, so it should already be set up.
Right. And we did this intentionally because in your budget there are budgeted items that you can enter, but there are non-budgeted items that you can't enter. And with the budget rather. If a subcategory is under a parent, you can't leave it out and not have it associated because any money associated with that category, whether it's in the budget or not, is going to show up. It'll either be in the line item or it'll be in the parent.
Yeah, it'll roll up into the parent category. So yeah, if you ever have a category, if there's ever anything that you don't want included in the budget, it is going to have to be its own separate parent category or grouped together under another parent category that's not in the budget.
Correct. And I know you guys think, well, gosh, that looks so weird. But we did that intentionally, and it's actually to give you a bolster as you're moving forward with the accounting platform. So once your categories are in place, Matt, the next thing you want to make sure you have is an account. You can't set up a budget and have information flowing in and out of your budget unless you have an actual bank account that it has transactions in it, because those transactions are what actually feed directly into the budget. So it's actually a really cool tool that's built to connect together like Legos.
Yeah, I love that about the ChurchTrac accounting feature, and that is you can create a budget and you don't have to keep the budget updated.
Right.
You just have to do your church's accounting, and the software will have it feed where it needs to go. Exactly. So it all just filters into place, so long as you're just adding the transactions and expenses and tracking all of that on the accounts themselves. And it's all because of the categories. When you're in the accounts, I'll open up this testing checking account. For every time you add a transaction, you have to categorize the transaction with at least one category, maybe multiple. And because we're using the categories to create the budget, that data from that transaction is then fed into those categories in the budget.
Right.
Perfect.
And
easy.
It is easy peasy. It sounds very confusing, and I understand that. I respect that too, because I'm a show me girl. Like, show me, prove it to me, make it work for my brain. So now, when you actually go into budgets, Matt, we actually created a budget. So you just go across the top and hit budgets. You can select a budget, which we have an example of, or you can go to the actions menu and you can create a new budget.
I'll zoom in again just so that you all can see that actions button there in the top right corner.
This little guy right here can create a lot of issues for people because they don't know where to find a budget report. They're not sure how to edit the budget, what it does. But in ChurchTrac, in our UI, we actually continuously update and try to keep things
organized
consistent.
and yeah, so there's like an actions button on
every
most screens in ChurchTrac. So definitely get familiar with that actions button, because there's a lot of really handy tools built into that menu.
And including your budget reports, which are a big deal here.
Yeah, we'll talk about those later.
Yeah, so here we want to look at our budget, but if you go and you create a budget, and you can call it testing.
Yeah.
Okay. Start your budget date. Now here's where you set up when you plan to start using your budget. It can be September 1st, it can be October 1st, it can be July 1st, it can be January 1st.
Yeah.
But the idea is this is a 12-month window from whatever your start date is to the next 12 months.
Yeah, and then ChurchTrac budgets
that's how it works.
It's an annual, yearly thing.
Right. Once you actually get that in place, you go through and you select all the categories that you want to be a part of your budget, okay? And then you create it. And it's literally that simple. When you're selecting these items, you want to make sure that you are not selecting designated contribution categories or designated expense categories, because those aren't going to be part of your general fund.
Yeah, again, for a church budget, you are only budgeting out of the general fund. So it's best to only, well, it's not just best, you should only select categories that are tied to the general fund.
Right.
And not even all of those categories need to be in the budget. It's just that only general fund categories are going to be tracked in a church budget.
Everything should be tracked in a church budget.
Everything that's tied to a designated fund needs to be left out of the church budget.
The other part of this, Matt, when you're creating your budget, is to remember, if you'll scroll back to the top for me, you need income. Mm-hmm. You cannot budget your expenses if you don't know how much your money coming in is.
Yeah.
If I make $100,000 a year and I budget for a $200,000 a year paycheck, then I'm in a shortfall.
Yeah.
A great shortfall.
Yeah.
So you have to theoretically in your mind make this logical and say, I can't budget more than I have. And it's wonderful, Matt, to think, okay, the Lord's going to make up the difference, but he also tells you to be wise.
And to steward.
Yeah, steward your money
he's
well.
Blessing you with.
So keep in mind, a church budget is built off of
income. Yeah. Not
just what you plan to spend, but what you have.
Yeah, the goal of a budget is to track the money flowing in and out.
Right.
You're not just tracking and planning for all of your expenses. You have to make sure that you have enough money coming in to cover those expenses. So you also have to budget and track the income side of this as well. So the reason we're harping on this is because Lori, as the support manager, has seen so many support tickets or has opened, so many accounts, and seeing the budget screen and seeing that they're tracking for the expenses, but there's no income being accounted for in the budget. You have to budget for income as well.
You absolutely do.
And the benefit of ChurchTrac is even if you're just getting started, you can have doing this for years gives you historic data. So you can build off of the past to plan for the future.
That's another cool feature. So if say you create your budget. Once you create it, I'm just going to have you hit cancel here, Matt, just so that because we already have our budget built.
Cool.
This is what pops in. Now, you'll note my budget is for 2025, okay? And if you look, now I'm displaying values through September. Well, this is going to indicate money that has come in or money that has gone out.
Right.
And that's where your received and your difference is.
Yep.
My budget does not actually have numbers in place, so keep that in mind when you're looking budgeted the $0 amounts. If you'll hit that Actions button, hit Edit this budget. You can see I can edit in bulk.
It's just an easy way to just quickly run through every line item and make a change. Yeah.
The beautiful part about this, Matt, is when you're setting up your budget, if you have a paper budget that you've used in the past, you can use those numbers and, okay, the church voted to increase by 10%. Well, you're just increasing your numbers by 10%. You fill in these numbers and you save it by closing. That's the beautiful part. It updates everything here.
Yeah.
Then if you go, oh, well, I need to adjust XYZ. Click on a line item and a slider opens from the side and you can adjust your budgeted amount here. One of the things our developers wanted us to definitely show was, if you'll scroll down just a smidge to the next pink line, it's actually supposed to be red.
It's red, but it's very light.
Yeah.
It's very light red.
It's a shade.
Yeah.
this is our VBS income. Well, everybody knows that VBS is only for a chunk of time.
Yeah, it's for like 1 week in the summer.
Right.
Yeah.
But we raise money and supplies and all that for 2 or 3 months, maybe even 4 months, depending on how big your VBS is. So if you click on this particular item, you can set this up to have a budget for a monthly time period and just use the months you're actually going to be planning for your budget. That's one of my favorite tools in here is that, some of our churches are in very snowy areas, and so they have snow removal expenses.
We don't deal with that in Florida.
Right.
We don't know what that means.
I really hope we never deal with that. But if you only have to budget for that for 5 or 6 months of the year, you can put your budget in here and cover that in that time frame as well. So you have this monthly option.
Because otherwise, like for a line item, since it's an annual budget, if you don't do that, it's going to assume that you need to be raising money every single for 12 months.
Yes.
But by doing this, you're telling the system, no, I don't need to raise that money in January. I need to raise it in
January would be, not July though, for snow removal.
Well, no, I'm talking about for VBS.
Oh, yes,
so
for VBS.
For like VBS, I don't need to raise the money in January.
No.
I raise it in like May, June, and July.
Right.
So that keeps your budget clean and keeps you from stressing out like, oh no, we're not meeting our goal. No, it's fine. It's just not even a priority right now.
And that's it. It takes the stress of the panic off. And that's really, really important because we don't need any more stress about money in churches or in life than we already have. So if you set your budget up and you work your budget properly, it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's a wonderful tool. Okay. Now let's talk about scrolling back up to the top for me, Matt. Let's look at these little pluses and minuses on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
So what's really cool here is that if you have a parent that has subcategories underneath it, that plus, if you hit it rolls everything up because some people like everything to roll up into the parent, and that's what that does. And if you hit the minus, it lets you put the details,
breaks everything out
into the subcategories, and the parent doesn't need the details. So when it rolls, it's accurate.
I'll show you with the utilities because there's some values added here. So when I collapse the utilities, there's all that money rolled up into the parent category. When I expand it out, the utilities line item goes back to 0 and the money is broken up into the subcategories.
The beautiful thing about this screen is the way you set this, it can also reflect in your reports, Matt.
Yes.
So it's really cool to see in your reports, but don't hit the actions button yet because I want to talk about one more thing.
Okay.
So scroll down back to utilities and I want to show something.
Okay.
So in your expense line items, if you're looking at your utilities and you saw numbers in the parent that were not represented in your subcategories.
Yes, we've seen tickets on this. People get confused.
Yes, because they leave a subcategory out because they think, oh, I'm not going to have that in my budget this year. And then somebody uses it. A financial person uses it when they're recording a transaction and then it gets used. Well, that category is not in your budget, but the money was still spent. So the budget, by virtue of the fact that transaction was recorded, takes that information and it records it in the parent category.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about this at the beginning when we were looking at payroll.
Right.
Why you need to break out the non-budgeted stuff into its own little category and subcategories. Because if you have subcategories under the payroll parent category that you're not using in the budget, but if you record any expenses in that subcategory, that's going to show up on the budget in the parent category because our system sees that and it knows that there's a family of categories.
And money's been spent.
Money's been spent underneath this category. We have to account for it, so it puts it there. So for anything that you don't want included in the budget, you have to break it off into its own category or subcategory.
So let's talk about that payroll thing again.
Okay.
So the non-budgeted payroll items, it's really, really important that they're not included in your budget.
Right.
Because if your paycheck has federal income taxes withheld and Social Security and Medicare, that money is not the church's money. That came out of your paycheck and is paid to the IRS on your behalf. So therefore, it can't be budgeted because you can't dictate how much you're going to spend. The church is going to spend on federal income taxes when the church doesn't pay federal income taxes.
Yeah.
That's why those are not included in your budget. Okay? Okay, now let's look at those reports, Matt.
All right. So yeah, we've talked about The foundation of setting up the accounting feature, that's the foundation of your budget. You have to have all of that set up correctly. Did we talk about class? The fact that we will set it up?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, so if you ever want some help setting up the accounting feature, and getting that foundation laid, both for the budget and just for your church's accounting in general, we actually set that up for you. So reach out to our support team. There is a fee associated with that. We have an article in our user guide. You can also just reach out to the support team, and we'll give you all the details of what's involved in that. We're not going to go in depth on that here. But also we've covered how...
But it is a service we offer.
But it is a service we offer. We want to make sure that you have the confidence of knowing that everything is set up correctly in your accounting and that your budgeting has that foundation that you need for the future. And then we also talked about how to create a budget, how to set it up and make sure it's established properly, and we've chosen the right categories and such. Now let's talk about how to track the budget going forward with the reports.
Okay. So scroll to the top for me. And in our budget screen, budget reports are only found in the budget screen.
Yeah, this is, to be fair, this can be confusing because there is a reports tab at the top of the screen.
For accounting.
But that's for accounting. That's not going to include any of the budget reports. The budget reports are tucked away in the budget screen under the actions
because
menu.
not everybody uses budgets. So you don't want to confuse people by thinking they can run a budget report if they haven't ever set up a budget.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the Actions tab button, there are budget reports, and there are several budget reports in here. I actually really like our budget reports. Okay.
Lori, you work here. You have to say that.
No, I don't. No, I don't. Don't ever assume that. But these reports are really cool. And the options that we have here are really cool because the auto, which is on every one of these reports, reflects how you have your budget set up in the background. So what you see in the background on that screen, however you have these pluses and minuses open, is how this report is going to show. It's going to take that data. The show all means it opens everything up for you.
It expands all of your parent categories to display the subcategories.
Every little detail. Yep. And the hide all means you only see the parents and it rolls everything up into those parents. So a lot of people actually like that view, and that's fine.
It's clean.
Yeah,
it's simple.
Very clean. And if you don't have a 16-page budget, which I have actually seen, it really just truncates it all up. It's quite lovely. But
so if you want to sort of customize how the budget is displayed in the report, you want some to be expanded and some to be rolled up and collapsed. That's what the auto feature is for. Just make sure that before you run the report, you're in that main budget screen and you're collapsing and expanding what needs to be collapsed and expanded, and then you produce the report.
There are some details that aren't really necessarily needing to be shared with everyone.
Sure.
I mean, it's just the way of business. But at the same time, you have that transparency if you want it.
Yeah, that's necessary.
So the simple yearly budget, Matt, literally just displays what's in the budget. It provides you all of the money that you have budgeted. Then this column on the far left that says number, this is if you've given a category number to your budget items.
Yeah.
It really doesn't, it's just a visual tool for some people. I did not assign those in my budget. I just put the numbers in here, so as Matt showed you. So if you ever want to adjust anything, you just go back to your tab at the top. This is what we call an HTML report. So it opens up in this screen. If you want to change things and make it look different, you just go back here, close your actions button and edit whatever you need to.
Yeah.
And then go back to the same process. Pop on that report again for me.
Oh, I just closed it right as you told me to. All right. So view report.
View report. That puts you here. You went up to show the date. The date is today's date. Believe it or not, that it's already September 17th. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's not editable because that's the day you're in the report. But under the cogwheel, you have the ability to change the report title. You have the ability to squish it up or make it larger. You can change the stripe color.
Cool.
Okay, and the font color. And trust me, when I've walked by some of my support staff and they've got a report open and it's in purple and bright green, I'm like, holy guacamole.
How do people look at that?
Yeah, but they love it. And then you got font sizes. A big complaint that we get as we get older is I can't see it. Okay, I've probably said that way too much this week due to my own undoing. But by using the font sizes, it makes the report more legible, okay? Once you set your settings, you can close it, and then you go to the little print icon to print your report. No, that's not the right printer.
Yeah, that's a label printer. This computer actually isn't connected to any of those.
So you can actually save it as a PDF as well. The really cool part about some of these reports, Matt, is you can automate them.
Yes. That's actually, we were going to save that for a pro tip, but it's okay. We're excited. We just can't help ourselves.
Let's do budget versus actual first.
All right,
because this is one of my favorite reports too. Again, I probably nerd out way too much with numbers, but the budget versus actual report says...
every church needs a numbers nerd. Every church needs a numbers nerd. So don't apologize for who you are.
I call this the BVA. So the BVA, or the budget versus actual report, tells me what I created as my budget.
It's Batman versus Aquaman.
Right. No. And then it tells me where I'm at. Like, how much are you really spending? Are you under budget? Are you over budget? How did you do with this process?
To me, the budget versus actual is it's a copy of the budget screen. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for a report that just pulls that screen out of the program, that's the budget versus actual.
Yeah, and this will tell you, this is what I budgeted, this is what actually we've received. This is the difference. Mm-hmm. The difference being, am I under or over budget?
Yeah, so if you see a negative there, don't
in the income section,
but that's also not what you want to see. So
that means you're off already.
Yeah, you're off.
Then what our annual budget is and what our projected budget's going to be based on the numbers we've already added. So the projection, a lot of churches see a big influx of contributions in December. So if you're basing your budget off of that, you're going to be out of whack until December when all that happens. But your expenses, again, will be reflected in here as well. So this report has a lot of purpose, and I appreciate the details in here. I always say the devil's in the details, and I believe that totally.
We don't want the devil in our church budget, though.
No.
We need the Holy Spirit in our church budget, Lori.
That's a Gibbs slap moment. Okay, back to church accounting. Monthly budget analysis. This lets you know, again, this report can be stressful if you have budgeted everything over an annual time frame for that 12-month period, but a bulk of your income comes in December or whatever, because you're going to be under for different things. But it's going to show you what your budget is and how you're doing monthly. So when you see those empty slots, it can create some stress for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is also a good insight to especially if you have years of data to work with, you can see a pattern.
You can see a pattern.
Our
we go down in the
donations
summer.
dip during this period, during this month every year.
Our air conditioning bill, our electric bill goes up, or you see trends, which trending is naturally a good thing. And then the compare this budget to. So here's the thing. As you build a history in here, Matt, you actually have the ability to say, okay, so how are we doing in 2025 versus how we did last year or 2 years ago or 4 years ago? And we have churches that have been with us that long that actually can compare this data. So that comparison is very helpful.
And this brings me to a really handy tool in the budget, which is the ability to clone.
Yes, sir.
So when you've done all the work, I was looking at the wrong camera. When you've done all the work of building a budget and you've tracked everything over the course of a year and it's time to budget for the next year, we made this, it's already really easy to set up a budget even from scratch. We made it even easier to do all of your subsequent budgets. In the actions menu,
again, that little blue button.
Again, get familiar with the actions button. That's your favorite. That's your best friend.
It is.
There's an option to clone this budget. So whenever you're doing this, it says, are you sure you want to create a new budget? Okay. And it just opens up an editable version of the budget you were just looking at. And because we know that for most churches, for most years, the budget from one year to the next has just minor differences. Right. So you just make your tweaks to the different line items and move on with your life. You could theoretically have the budget done in the time it takes to brew a pot of coffee.
Not even a pot, a cup, if you've got an espresso machine.
You got the Keurig?
Yeah. So, literally, the hardest part about it is figuring out the name, when you want to start, and filling in your numbers. And typically, by the time you're ready to clone it, you're really ready to put those numbers in place.
Yeah, you already know what the numbers are going to be.
Because the meetings have already happened. So take advantage of that and utilize the tools. What else is under that actions menu, Matt?
So if we open it back up.
What's behind curtain number 1?
You also have the ability to quickly open up all subcategories or roll them all up. Just like you can in your reports, You can just snap things open and close so you can clean things up or blow things up and see everything from a bird's eye view.
And then the last thing is deleting. I don't recommend deleting unless you just messed it completely up and you need to start again. But let's keep in mind that you can edit and make changes. Oh, I do want to hit on something that I know for a fact confuses people. Go up to that actions button, Matt. Hit edit this budget. And edit this budget. When you're in here and you need to get rid of, say we want to get rid of tithes and offerings because we don't need that one, we want them separated. If you go over here and you click on the trash can, so you're trying to uncheck it.
I'm trying to uncheck it, yeah.
You have to hit the trash can. It does not delete the category from your accounting screen.
Don't worry.
It only removes it from your budget. And that's huge because people they freak out. They're like, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. It just takes that out of the budget. And if you find that you need it later, you just go back and check it again and then put whatever amount in there. So keep in mind, it's really simple. And we don't want to cause more stress with accounting because some people just don't enjoy this part of the process.
They were the ones that raised their hands and said, I'll do it, coach.
Exactly.
Put me in the game.
Exactly. And we have a lot of people that do that.
We love you. We love every single one of you that's doing that. You're amazing. You're the reason why we made this as easy as possible to use.
You absolutely are. You absolutely are. And so that's why I kind of give you that. I guess that would be a pro tip.
What?
Just knowing how to edit the budget properly. And
Yeah.
I got a little ahead of myself.
But again, with the support manager sitting here across the table from me, don't ever hesitate to reach out to the support team. Click that orange help button, send us a ticket. We'll be here for you whenever you need us. We even have people that are on it throughout the day or even sometimes check in on the weekends, don't we? Yeah. So if you ever have a question, send us a ticket. Our support team is really fast in all of their response times. My background is support and customer support before I worked here at ChurchTrac, and this is the best support team I've ever seen. Yeah. So they're great. Reach out to them whenever you have any questions or just run into something you're not sure about. We'll point you in the right direction and make sure that you have the right foundation laid so that you can manage your church's budget and steward the resource. That's what this is about. Stewarding the resources that God has blessed your church with.
Amen.
All right, our support team, whoever's watching the chat, has been doing great answering all the questions, so very thankful for that. So I see Sungai. I've seen this question a couple times in the chat. Is there a way to rewatch this? This is already on our YouTube channel now, and when we're done, after it's loaded for a few minutes, this will be here waiting for you if you ever want to watch it again. So you can go back and review this anytime on the YouTube channel, literally within minutes after this is over.
That's very cool.
So subscribe to the YouTube channel to get that video and stay up to date on everything else that we're doing there as well. It's a great resource. Well, we have gone through the meat of everything that we had planned to cover in this workshop. We're going to tackle the pro tips that we have planned as well, just to make sure that you really get the most out of this. And then once we're done with the pro tips, we'll dive into the Q&A piece. So if you have any questions that you've been sitting on and just haven't dropped in the chat, or if it just got overlooked earlier, go ahead and get that into the chat now so that we can cover that in just a moment. But for the pro tips, just again, to make sure that you understand exactly how to use this and get the most out of it, just for pro tip number 1, review your categories and your funds and make sure that they're all set up correctly.
Yes.
Just not to call anyone out or shame anyone, but we just, on the support team and even in my role on the engagement team, we see a lot of categories. Well, we see a lot of accounts with category screens that are just kind of a mess. Well,
and part of our process, Matt, is to once you get everything set up, our user guide actually says, send us a support ticket and ask us to review your accounting. That's a really big deal because we're going to be able to tell you from what we can see if you're doing it right or not. So keep in mind that we're not here to judge you. We're here to help you bolster your abilities and get you moving forward in the right direction successfully. That's what we want because it makes our jobs easier and it absolutely makes your job easier. Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you have your categories all done correctly. And by that I mean make sure that, first of all, don't have every category separate in its own parent category. You can consolidate and organize things by taking some and making them a subcategory of another. Also, make sure that the income categories are labeled as income and the expense categories are labeled as expenses. Something that, Lori, you were telling me about earlier when we were getting ready for this is how often you've seen churches have their general offerings category listed as an expense category.
Yes, it happens all the time, and it's because they don't realize that the properties on the right-hand side of that screen have to be set up. So when you enter a category in the accounting screen, it defaults to an expense, Matt. So if you have an income category and you want, and keep in mind, I have named these categories very specific and long titles because I knew you guys were going to be looking at my data, not because I really want you to put all of that information in there. So it would just be missions, and it would be foreign missions and home missions, and then you guys know what you do with that. So and I was in an account this morning, and bless it, the poor lady had, the title of her parent category was so long that it wouldn't even fill up the space. It was too much in the transaction, and it was wrapping. So if she printed a check, it would wrap over everything. These need to be concise, they need to be accurate, and they need to be easy to follow. Because somebody is going to follow you in this position, and they need to be able to pick up where you left off and have it make sense. So keep that in mind. Most churches don't have long-term treasurers. So for cohesiveness, you want to make this work where if something happens to you, somebody else can step in and pick it up and know exactly what you were doing.
Yeah, and that gets to Thaddeus and Bob in the chat said,
I was like, it gets to who?
Yeah, Lori, we created our categories well before we had any idea what to really do, and it's made our accounting, reporting, budgeting quite difficult. Any tips on how we can fix it? Should we wipe it all and try again, attempt to fix it over time, etc.?
So, Thaddeus, the one thing that I would say to you is create a support ticket and let our team log in and look. If you have several years worth of data in here, we can clean up your categories. We can make things work more efficiently for you. But starting all over is only a good option if your numbers don't match and things are just wonky donkey. But if you have tens of thousands or 1,000 transactions in here and you have to manually go in and update each one, it's not going to be effective either. So we actually have tools to help you with this process. So I would say certainly reach out to our team. They're glad to help with this process, and they will help get you going. They'll give you homework. They're not going to do it for you, but they're going to get you moving forward in the right direction so that you experience success, and that's what we want.
Perfect. Pro tip number 2, don't add everything to the budget.
No.
Why is that important?
So your budget is intended to be, your main budget for the church is general fund. It's money that comes in to be used to support the church. You can have other budgets. You can have a youth budget. You can have a men's ministry budget or a women's ministry budget. But that money is not used by the church. It's used by these other ministries. So the general budget, and that's what I always call it, is your general fund. It's got your general offerings in it. It's got your tithes. It's got the pastor's paycheck in it. It's got payroll taxes. It's got all of your expenditures. This is what's running the operations of the church.
So it doesn't need to include literally everything. And it also should not include anything from designated or restricted funds.
Well, the last time I checked, Matt, you can't put a gun to my head and say you will give $5,000 to missions this year, whether you like it or not.
It is so funny you say that, it gave that exact example, because someone asked about that exact thing in the chat just a moment ago.
I swear I don't have access to the chat because I can't really see the screen.
So this is actually another question from Thaddeus and Bob. They asked, if we budget $10,000 for missions, if we budget $10,000 for missions and someone donates $5,000, does that mean our missions budget is still $10,000 with $5,000 fulfilled, or do they have $15,000 to spend?
Technically, if you budget $10,000 out of your general fund, Matt, and somebody gives $5,000 additionally to missions, you can have a conversation with them and say, are you trying to offset our budget or whatever? But I mean, honestly, that to me bolsters my missions abilities further by giving it to make it $15,000.
Yeah, because to me, it sounds like you can more or less expect $10,000 to go to missions from your church out of the general, because I know a lot of churches will basically take a small percentage of what they get through tithes and give that to missions, and it's more or less a guaranteed thing that they're giving. If someone gives $5,000, that's unexpected, and you can just stack that on top of what you're giving to missions throughout the year. All right, make sure that the date range is correct. That's pro tip number 3. So we're talking like start date, and then also keep in mind you can break things out monthly.
So hold on, Matt.
Oh, okay.
Go to budget. So I'm going to show you exactly what our pro tip, because the way that sounded, it would be very confusing to me if I wasn't familiar with the screen. So when you go to select your budget, and then go to actions and edit this budget. Your start date is when your budget begins. Again, we hammer this home because we get this question a lot. But I'm starting in the middle of the year. I only want a 6-month budget. Well, ChurchTrac tracks a 12-month budget. That's why we give you the option of setting in and doing the monthly items. So you can set it up as a 6-month budget, but you have to know what's coming in the next 6 months or what your expenditures are going to be.
Yeah.
And nothing outside of your transaction register or checking account is going to apply. So you can't go in here and say, I have a $100,000 general offerings budget and I've already got $50,000. It doesn't work that way. You would set it up monthly to accommodate the $50,000.
Yeah. And pro tip number 4 is to automate the budget report monthly.
Yay!
Lori kind of jumped the gun and hinted at that a little while ago. I'll show you exactly what she meant by that. Under settings and automations, there is an automations tab at the very top of the screen. And you can create an automation. If I click the add button at the bottom, I know I'm kind of moving fast, but I want to make sure we get through this. If you get to the bottom, if you click the add button, I can title this a budget report automation. There is an option below to email a ChurchTrac report. Click Add Automations. And from here, I have the ability to say I want a, oh, you know what? I think I did the wrong thing. Oh my goodness, I need practice. So if I go back here, do budget report. Yeah. I needed to learn how to spell too, apparently. Go to Application Automation. There we go. And then click Add Automation below. I now have the ability to say I want to email an accounting screen report. And I can choose one of the budget reports, like budget versus actual or monthly budget analysis. So if I got the BVA, the Batman versus Aquaman report, that's how I'm going to remember it from now on. And say I want to have this email, and I select which budget it's coming from, and I save that action, and then I say I want it to come to me every month on the first of the month, or on a day of the month. We'll just say the very first day of the month, 9 a.m., save changes. That way I can keep track of this on a regular basis, and the system does it for me. I don't have to log in and generate the report. This just will spit a report out to me and send it to me in an email at the time I say I want it to run here.
And what this is, again, me nerding out on numbers. This also keeps me accountable, Matt, so that I know that every month I'm going to get this report, and every month I'm going to be able to look at it and say, okay, we can make adjustments to the budget if we need to based on trends in the report.
Well, another accountability component is, let's say you have like a board, or maybe you have to report this up the denominational chain. Whoever needs to receive that, you can add them as a user at no extra cost. We don't charge for that. Add them as a user in your ChurchTrac account, even if they're not going to regularly log in and use these features, but just have it automatically send it to them. That way, they're not even relying on or counting on you to do it every month, and you don't have to remember. They just get it, and they can see that. And then you are accountable for what gets sent to them.
That's right.
Love it.
I love it.
Just to make that really, really easy. All right, so those are the pro tips. Let's get into the Q&A. I know that there's a handful of questions in the chat that we haven't tackled yet, so let's dive in and make sure that all of you get the answers to the questions that you have. So I think I saw this earlier. Yeah, a lady named Shannon said that she inherited a ChurchTrac program that 5 other people have been using. It's a mess. How can I reset up all my categories? Will it destroy the history? Is there a service to have someone hold my hand as I clean up our system? It is truly a mess. Way too many categories, and all 5 bookkeepers have allocated transactions differently.
Again, you can't just go in and pick up where somebody left off if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I would strongly suggest, Shannon, is that you reach out to support, because we need to look at this and we need to make some determinations as to whether or not this is salvageable, or if we just need to print off your hard copy reports from your history and then let you start all over fresh. So sometimes that's the best answer, believe it or not. And taking the time to learn the program and learn how to do it the right way is key to success. So you're already on the right path. So just reach out. Our team is always, they know we're going to get a lot of support tickets from this because I really push this issue, but we want you to be successful. So if you've got a hot mess going on and you need to really get some assistance, we do offer that class service to set it up for you, but we can also empower you to do it yourself if you feel like it's something you want to do.
Perfect. All right. Let's see. Bob Dilly asked earlier, are there helps for pledging and stewardship, and does that feed into the budgeting? And the answer is yes, to both. Those are built into the giving and pledges screen. You have tools built in here for like having a pledge campaign recorded and tracked. So you can create a pledge campaign, you can record all those donations and track that, and you can deposit all of that data from the giving screen into the accounting screen with just a couple clicks of the mouse. That way you don't have to like re-enter that on the accounting screen. But when you do that deposit, but the donations, the amount of the donations and what categories were donated to, that'll feed into the budget if you've included any of those categories in your budget. So yeah, that all will feed into your budget so long as you're recording on the giving screen and depositing that into the accounting screen.
And that create deposit button, Matt, is actually quite critical. A lot of people miss that from the giving screen. So if you'll actually show that.
Yes.
So when you're in a contribution, okay, and you're looking at things and you want to deposit this $700, you go to the actions button. Remember, we talked about the actions button earlier. You scroll up to the top to create deposit, and this gives you, not that screen, it gives you this screen. And then you select the bank account you want it to go to, and then you create the deposit. That entry automatically fills your accounting screen register. That's one of the $700.
Oops.
No, you're right there. You're right there.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Right there.
Where's the $700? I'm blind.
Right there.
Oh, okay. I was blind. All right, there we
Double click that
go.
for me. The people don't come over, but your category details come over, and that's critical to making everything work. And believe it or not, a lot of people miss this. They don't utilize that tool, and then their giving and their accounting don't match, and they're so confused.
It's either because they have recorded on the giving screen and think it should automatically be there,
and it doesn't,
and it hasn't been deposited, or they're doing double work.
They manually entered it and it was too many details, and they said, forget it, I'll just put it on under general offerings.
Well, not only that, or they'll make a mistake. Like they'll fat finger a number and accidentally, as they're typing it again.
Transposing. I'm really bad about transposing numbers sometimes, so I can't even imagine.
Yeah, when you double the work, you double the chance and opportunity for just a simple clerical error. So utilize that deposit button to move the data into the accounting screen and enjoy how that feeds into the budget. All right, thank you very much, Bob, for that question. Jill asked, we have to use your budget program in order to get reports? Budget reports? Yeah. If you want to get reports on your budget, you have to use the budget tool in ChurchTrac. If you have other budgeting tools like spreadsheets or some other thing, you have to turn there for reports. So if you want to get reports on your church budget, use ChurchTrac and use the budgeting tool there. It's so easy.
And if you're already using the accounting features, using the budget tool is amazing, honestly.
Sarah B has a similar question to some earlier ones, but with a key difference, and that is there any advice for someone who's brand new and inheriting a bookkeeping mess in QuickBooks? Is it best to start from scratch, import the current mess, and doctor it? If it's coming from QuickBooks,
we do have some tools that can help you move the data over from QuickBooks, but honestly, the easiest and most effective means of getting your data from one program to another is simply using your true bank statements. Because ChurchTrac is a single entry program. So your bank statements, and even the option of bank sync if your bank is connected with Stripe, can really get your information in, and then you just simply update the transactions. That's the beauty of it. And most banks will go back 6 months without a fee as far as your bank statements. But if you have those bank statements, whether in digital or paper format, you can build a year's worth of data in ChurchTrac fairly easily.
Yeah. Father Thompson asked, is it possible to make a yearly budget that starts from a different month than January?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're creating a new budget and you go to that, there's an option to edit or select a start date. You can choose any month.
Any date you want.
Any date you want. Beverly Green, do you include the ministries in the budget if the general fund supports the ministry? Well, if it's coming out of the general fund, then you
typically, because like your women's ministry can have a certain amount and your youth ministry can have a certain amount, and then all of them can be included in your budget as long as they're part of your general fund and the money is actually budgeted for that ministry. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want you to do. A lot of churches, for example, my church has a women's ministry, and when we just started a new Bible study and we had to buy our books. So our books aren't included in our women's ministry budget. The snacks and everything we eat are, but the books weren't. But we paid for our books outside of that. And so that was just a payment because we received something in return for it. It wasn't part of our giving or anything. But that money went straight to buying the book. So it's what I call a pass-through category. It was taken up for this and spent out of that. So it zeroed itself out.
All right. Beverly Green, do you include the minister? Oh, I'm sorry. We just did that one. Thaddeus and Bob, can you set up automation to send that email to multiple persons, or do you need to set up multiple automations doing the same thing for different people? You can have it send to multiple people, but you don't need to create multiple automations. You create one automation and you create a separate action within that automation for each person that needs to receive it.
You can show them.
I don't know why, and you know what? Yeah, I don't know why I'm just sitting here like telling you. Go to Settings and Automations, go back to that Automations tab. I'll scroll down and find that one that I created. It was this, that was the people screen one. There we go. So budget report, that was the action to create a budget versus actual report and send it to myself. I just add a new action, go back into emailing an accounting screen report, choose that budget versus actual again, and choose yet another user. The only thing to be aware of is that person does have to be a user on the account to receive that email. So again, if there's somebody that needs to receive this, they need to be added as a user, even if that's the only reason they're added. Just go ahead and add them. Thank you very much, Bob, for that question. Let's move on to the next one. It's Thaddeus and Bob. So Chad Morris said, in the budget screen, is there a way that there can be a default 12-month option under the display value through? It seems most would use the 12-month more often opposed to a quarterly or just through the current month. Chad, I'm not really sure.
I think I know what he's talking about.
I
think so if you go to cancel and go back to our budget.
Oops, wrong feature.
I think what he's talking about is display values through right there, Matt.
Yeah.
So this is actually, it's giving you a monthly choice. So, I mean, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September would give you your first 3 quarters of the year. So that's what it's going to do. So but because everybody sets this up differently, it depends on where you are in the world, where you are in the country, where you are in your business. The setup is going to be based on when you actually start your budget, not the 12 months. So it has 12 months, and I get what you're saying, but because we would prefer you just to be able to pick the month you want that display to show. And when you do that, like for example, mine is showing through September, but my budget started in January. So it's showing through the end of September, basically all 3 quarters.
So Steve L. asked, my income statement is showing a negative amount in general tithes and offerings.
That means that you spent money out of general offerings instead of out of an expense category. So if you're in your income statement and you are looking at your report and you have a negative in your income statement for whatever period, it means that you've spent money out of an income category, and that's where you're getting the negatives from. If it's an expense, it's going to be negative. But as the income, it should not be negative. So there's a tool in the accounting register, and this is not related to budgets, but there's a tool in the accounting screen under search.
Oh, yep. So if I go to search. Yep.
Search. And here you can go to edit search, and you can look up the category that's in the negative. So for example, if my general offerings was negative and you hit submit, and it defaults from the beginning of your year, this shows you every transaction that was used with that category. And the little plus on the side allows you to indicate, see, there you go, it's general fund and general offerings. So somebody paid an expense to Walmart out of the general offerings, and that's not what it should have been paid for.
Nope.
You want to know something really cool, Matt?
What is that?
Double click on that transaction.
Whoa, it takes you to the transaction.
And I can fix it here.
Oh, yeah, I see. Okay. So like this is a simple mistake to make.
It is, absolutely.
Because in the transaction type, expense is the default on the accounting script.
And it may be that it was it was a real expense. It just wasn't categorized correctly because you added a new line item and didn't put the data in.
Yeah.
So you can edit that transaction from here, but that's how you would do it. Wonderful tool, one of my favorite pieces of this program. I know, a nerd. I get it, but it's okay.
Let's see. Ken said, is there a report that shows all the categories and subcategories and all the setup items, such as expense versus income? Well, that would be found under if you're looking for expenses and income with all the categories and subcategories, that's going to be found in the main reports tab on the accounting screen, not in the budgets.
Right.
Because you're asking for more data than just what's in the budget.
Right.
So definitely explore the reports there. We won't go into detail there just because it depends on what exactly you're looking for, and there's a lot of reports there. So check those out. Angela, kudos to the programmers who added the icon to show when an entry has been deposited. Yes, makes that easy. Leslie, can you give different ministry leaders access to their section of the general budget to make a more detailed budget for their specific ministry? The answer is no.
No.
You either have access to the budget or you don't.
Right. And you have to have access to the accounting register to have access to the budget.
Mm-hmm. So just be aware of that. You have the budget reports option if anybody at the church needs to see the data but doesn't need access to everything else. You can just generate the report and let them see that. And they can make whatever notations, like write on it, hand it back to you, and then you can go and make those edits.
Right,
so it's still a very simple process. Right. Joe S. asked, how can I convince our church board that ChurchTrac is safe for us to use the budget feature? They're concerned with giving ChurchTrac access to our bank accounts. What is your track record? Any breaches, hacks, and how many churches use the budget features?
Well, you said Joe?
Yeah, Joe. Mm-hmm.
So first of all, Joe, we don't actually have access to your bank account. That's what's really cool. We have nothing to do with it. It's an integration that your bank has with Stripe, mm-hmm. and Stripe is a merchant processor. Now, they feed that information to us once they get it out of they make that connection. But the only information that we actually have is what the bank provides or what is manually entered. Mm-hmm. And so unless you're providing somebody access to your data, we don't have any issues with the information. We don't have access to your direct bank account, and we don't do anything with that data other than we don't even look at it unless you ask us to. As far as data breaches or anything like that, praise God, we don't have those issues. Our security team is amazing, and they keep us, world class. They keep us very safe and secure. Yeah,
I mean the guy over security here at ChurchTrac managed security for Fortune 500 companies.
Yep.
So it's cutting edge what we do here to protect your data. So you don't have anything to fear. As long as you're doing safe practices, like with strong passwords, you're not sharing login with other people.
We have security protocols, Matt, that they can actually access too, and we have YouTube videos where Brian and Wes did all the security live streams. So if I can learn from this, you guys can learn from it. It's pretty amazing.
So Birdie asked, is pass-through the same as in and out? Should in and out balance be 0 at the end of the year?
Yes.
Yes. We were talking about this just yesterday.
Yes.
How we'll see churches with something like a benevolence fund that'll have thousands and thousands of dollars sitting in it for a long, but it was meant to be given.
Right. To be used. It should have come in and gone out to whomever you needed it for that act.
It's like missions. Are you holding on to money and not giving it to your missionaries?
Right, exactly. We see that all the time. We do.
Yeah, so
that's not your church's personal nest egg. That is actually supposed to be used for what it was designated for.
Yeah. So pass through, yes. And whether you're doing that out of the general fund and just using your categories to track that, or you have a separate fund for that, The answer is yes. You need to know exactly how much money was brought in because you need to be giving that amount out whenever it's supposed to go out.
So those category details are very important.
Yep, very, very important. Angela, in the example for Women's Ministry Bible Study books, when the church orders the books and people reimburse, what's the best way to show those reimbursements to that ministry fund? The money is coming out of the general fund, so it has to be accounted for.
Right, you're absolutely correct. So when the money is paid, like in my case, my book was $15. So that money would have gone back into the ministry and the correct fund. And when that is indicated in the giving screen or in the accounting register, however you all are mapping it individually, it would not be a tax-deductible contribution. It would be a book payment, and it would go directly back into whatever category you bought the books from. So it's offsetting it, so it should come back to a zero.
Mm-hmm. And that brings me to Shannon's question. Is an in and out pass-through set up as a category?
Yes.
Yes. An in and out, it has to at least be a category. You can have a fund if it's like a designated ministry at your church, but you at least need a category.
I typically have them make it as an income category map because that way the money that comes in can be applied to it. Mm-hmm. And then if your income category is in the negative, you know that money needs to be, that offset needs to be taken care of.
Perfect. That is all the questions.
Holy guacamole.
And it's at 3, oh my goodness, it's 3 o'clock. It's been exactly an hour.
We couldn't have done that if we tried.
Yeah, we landed the plane just in time. We'll go ahead and call this here. If you ever have questions, if you're like me and you wish you had thought of questions 10 minutes after it all was over, there's that orange help button. I'll even point to it. Woo, right there. There's that orange help button in the top right-hand corner of your ChurchTrac account. The support manager will make sure that you get your answers no matter what. No matter what. Come hell or high water, you're going to get that question answered. We're here for you anytime you need us. So send us a support ticket, reach out to the support team, or check out our user guide and our videos for all of the answers that you need. But I hope you learned how to get into your church budget and set everything up so that you can properly steward everything that God has blessed your church with.
Amen.
Have a blessed day.
Bye.